Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. Definition of a veteran. There are currently an estimated 21.8 million veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces. The Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs recognizes the sacrifices of the country's armed forces and works hard to connect Minnesota veterans with the federal and state benefits they have earned. Dependents and survivors may be eligible for benefits through the U.S. Department of Veterans or the state of Minnesota, depending on the veteran's eligibility. According to the federal government, under Title 38 of the United States Code, the basic definition of veteran is a person who has served in the active military, naval, or air service who was discharged or released under conditions other than dishonorable. However, access to most federal benefits, including education and health care, have specific length of service requirements. Under federal law, Section 401, Public Law 95-202, Minnesota also recognizes as veterans certain groups whose duty was considered as civilian or contractual service at the time it was rendered. This applies to particular listed groups such as the Merchant Marine or the Women's Air Force's service pilots who served during World War II, but whose service was not recognized as active duty until years later. Under Minnesota law, a veteran is defined as a citizen or resident alien who has been discharged under honorable conditions from any branch of the armed forces of the United States. To qualify as a veteran for Minnesota benefits, a person must have served on active duty for at least 181 consecutive days or been discharged due to a disability incurred while serving on active duty. MDVA accepts discharges characterized as honorable, under honorable conditions, uncharacterized, or general. Discharges characterized as dishonorable, other than honorable, undesirable, or bad conduct do not qualify an individual as a veteran under state law. In the case of the Reserves and National Guard, there are some important differences. Service in the Reserves can meet the definition of active duty if it can be established that the service was full-time and for operational or support purposes. The Reserves have several programs in which members serve full-time but are never called to active duty. Reserve training duties do not count as active duty and cannot be used to determine veteran status. Reserve duties that are not considered active duty include initial active duty for training, IADT, annual training, AT, active duty training, ADT. A reservist may also be considered a veteran if they die or become disabled as a result of an injury or illness acquired or aggravated in the line of duty depending on dates of service. This includes death and disablement as a result of active or inactive duty for training. The USVA also has the authority to declare certain types of service active duty in order to establish eligibility. In the National Guard, the definition of active duty for training is different from the definition used by the Reserves. In the National Guard, full-time operational and support service does not qualify as active duty and cannot be used toward USVA or Minnesota benefit eligibility. Although the National Guard may be called upon by the governor to provide relief and protection during a state of emergency, these duties are known as Title 32 call-up. This type of service is state duty and does not count towards service requirements for veteran benefits at either the state or federal level. A Guard member may apply their time to active duty requirements if that member served under a Title 10 call-up or federal duty, which is called by the President or Defense Secretary for a national emergency. Once serving a day of active duty, they're entitled to some federal benefits. However, many benefits, like the Montgomery GI benefits, still have certain length of service requirements. In the case of either the Reserves or the National Guard being called to active duty, Title 10 federal duty, the service member must have been discharged under honorable conditions after having served the full period for which they were called or ordered to active duty. For MDVA purposes, there is no minimum length of such service in order to be eligible for state veterans benefits. Let's look at a few examples. Case Study 1. Joe enlisted in the Army soon after his high school graduation and spent more than 181 consecutive days in active duty. He was discharged under other than honorable conditions because he was absent without official leave, AWOL, for more than 180 days. Due to the character of his discharge, he is not generally eligible for state or federal benefits. Case Study 2. Monique joined the reserves but never experienced an active duty call-up. She took part in active duty for training but was injured in the process. Although she never had the chance to serve in an active duty role, the fact that her disabling injury was acquired during active duty for training may give her access to benefits through the USVA and MDVA depending on the dates of service. In the case of every Minnesota veteran, the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs is here to connect veterans, their dependents, and their survivors with the benefits earned from honorable military service. This includes caring for veterans and their spouses in 5 veterans' homes across the state of Minnesota. From World War II to the current conflict, MDVA is dedicated to Minnesota veterans and their service.